Chapter 1861. Daisy forced a smile. Congratulations, Ames. You acted well too. It said that Benny had to choose between you and me in the end. Amy let off a faint sigh. Benny actually likes you very much. Daisy lowered her head. She did not know where she had made a mistake. Is it because I'm really not suitable for the role? You don't have to feel discouraged. Amy raised her hand, patted her on the shoulder, and comforted her. You still have a long way to go in the entertainment industry and will run across loads of opportunities ahead. After all, it's normal in the industry to miss out on a role. It'd be a real shame if you were to lose confidence after only encountering such situations once. Daisy took a deep breath, lifted her head, and said with a smile, "Thanks for the advice. I've learned so much, and I still have a lot to learn from you in the future." At the Goldman mansion, Daisy sat in her room, looking at the script of The Lady of the Dragons and some notes that she had prepared in advance. Sure enough, it was of no use in the end. She lay on the desk face down. The emotional difference was so huge that she could not adapt to it for a while. She had completed all her courses in the drama, theater, and film departments as the best of the batch. However, it turned out that no matter how one's grades were, in reality, grades and real-life experience were never compared on the same plane. Her phone suddenly rang. It was Knowles. She answered the call. Knowles. Knowles chuckled. How did the audition go? Daisy paused and lowered her gaze. I lost the role, and I'm a little disappointed. He laughed out loud. That's all it takes to disappoint and discourage you? Daisy whispered, Of course not. But I liked this character, so it's a pity I can't play it. She thought of something all of a sudden. Aren't you busy? He smiled. No matter how busy I am, I'll always have the time to call you. After that, he chuckled again. It seems you're very obedient. The ring has always been by your side. Daisy caressed the ring on her neck and wondered. How do you know that I must be wearing it? He sounds so sure about it. Isn't he afraid of getting it wrong? Knowles teased her. Maybe it's because I have eyes on the ring. She burst into a chuckle and was amused by him. As she spoke to Knowles, the fog that was overcasting her heart dispersed almost instantly. Edison's voice sounded in the background from the other end of the phone, and Knowles said to her, Okay, I'll go back to work first. I'll contact you some other day, be good. On the other end of the phone call. After hanging up, Knowles took the document Edison handed him and flipped through it. Has Donald been getting very close to the Lewis Group recently? Edison replied, Yes, the Lewis Group has always been regarded as our competitor in recent years. Perhaps Donald wants to hinder the Knowles Group's growth. That's why he's trying to win them over. Knowles laughed. It's said that Laura Reese is the ex-girlfriend of Naftali Lewis, the son of the Lewis Group's president. Edison was taken aback. Mr. Lewis was in a relationship with Miss Reese back then? Yes, it was before Laura got to know Ken. Knowles tapped the document with his fingertips. Naftali and Laura were dating each other in college, and the two broke up a few years after graduation. That's how Ken got his opportunity. Edison was surprised. How do you know these things, Mr. Knowles? Mr. Lewis is the eldest son of the Lewis Group's president. If he really had a relationship with Miss Reese, why didn't he make it public? Knowles explained nonchalantly, Naftali used to study at the Victoria Business College, and he's my senior. It's not difficult to get to know a thing or two about his affairs. Colleges had always been great places. Those who studied in colleges knew everything that outsiders did not. Edison felt helpless. But this is all in the past, so what does it mean to us now? Didn't you realize it? Knowles lifted his gaze. Naftali has remained single up until now, and he doesn't even have a girlfriend around him. I'm guessing that it's either his personal issue or because of Laura. Chapter 1862. Knowles got up in a hurry and straightened his shirt. No matter what the reason, I should go and meet this senior of mine. At the Santa Diego Hotel. In the restaurant, two people were sitting by the window. It was Nolace and Naftali. Naftali tasted the coffee in the cup and raised his gaze. I don't know much about my father's business with Mr. Matthews. After all, I've now established a perfume company myself, so I rarely intervene in the Lewis Group's affairs. Nolace smiled and rubbed his thumb against the face of his watch. Mr. Lewis, you're such a talented man. Haven't you considered getting married? Naftali paused for a bit, put down the coffee cup, and gave off a smile. I don't have plans for that for the time being. Could it be that you have a lady that you'd like to introduce to me? What type of woman do you prefer, Mr. Naftali? I'm not picky when it comes to that, as long as it's a lady. Nolace's gaze was fixed on the time displayed on his watch until a sharp sound of high heels hitting the floor came from behind. Maggie came out of nowhere in professional attire and stood beside Nolace. Sir, you have a meeting in the afternoon. It's time to return to the company. Naftali stood up abruptly when he saw Maggie's, no, to be exact, the lady's face. He even knocked over the coffee on the table. Nolace squinted slightly, but his expression remained unchanged. Apparently, getting Maggie to show up was a test that he had set up for Naftali. Ken had forced Maggie to undergo plastic surgery to change her face into that of Lara's. Now that she had recovered, she looked a lot like Lara. She might not look 100% similar, but she was 70% there. He took out a handkerchief and handed it to Naftali. What's wrong? Naftali grabbed it from him, but he still could not take his eyes off Maggie's face. Nolace picked up the coffee mug. You seem very surprised by my assistant Maggie. Sorry, Naftali slowly returned to his senses and looked slightly embarrassed. He then wiped the coffee stains on his trousers and added, Your secretary looks like someone I know. Nolace gave off a faint smile. Does she look like Miss Lara Reese? Naftali's expression turned depressed. If I hadn't agreed to break up with her, she wouldn't have. Nolace suddenly moved a phone number with the address of a nursing home in front of him. If you're still brooding about the past, you might as well go to this place. After Naftali left, Nolace and Maggie walked out of the hotel. Maggie asked, Are you giving Mr. Lewis a chance by telling him about the nursing home in which Miss Reese is staying? Nolace held on to the car door. The Lewis Group's president has only one son, and that's Naftali. Will the benefits that Donald presented to him be more important than his only son? Maggie had an epiphany. So, you're trying to win Mr. Lewis over. Nolace sat in the car. Naftali will take over the Lewis Group in the future. Donald will only enjoy a short moment of victory as he has chosen to approach his father. I'm not only thinking about long-term stability but also want Naftali to owe me a favor. The next day, in Bassburg. The ringtone of Daisy's cell phone awakened her. She groped for the bedside table and answered the call. Charlie's voice sounded on the other end of the cell phone. Daisy Vanderbilt, do you plan to change managers? She sat up abruptly, and all her drowsiness disappeared in an instant. Mr. Johnson, but didn't you say, I'll give you 20 minutes. The deal's off if I don't see you in 20 minutes. Charlie interrupted her and hung up the phone after saying that. Daisy was stunned for a few seconds, then quickly got out of the blanket and ran to the bathroom to freshen herself. She rushed to Tenet Media's management department in a hurry, arrived just in time, pushed open the door, and came in with labored pants. Charlie sat behind his desk and placed a script on the desk expressionlessly. I just secured another role for you. It's the protagonist. Do you want it or not? Chapter 1863. Daisy was momentarily stunned before she stepped forward. Mr. Johnson, but I didn't get the role of Dragon Lady. I didn't really expect you to get it. Charlie crossed his arms and leaned against the back of the chair. The reason you lost that role is that on the day of the audition, you looked at the role from a bystander's perspective and didn't put yourself into the shoes of the Dragon Lady. The Dragon Lady isn't as sad of a character as you think she is. Even if the heavens have done something wrong, The Dragon Lady shouldn't have indiscriminately killed innocent people because she's against the destiny that was arranged for her by the heavens. Daisy paused. In the plot, when the Dragon Lady eradicated the sect, many disciples of the sect, who were innocent, were dragged into the catastrophic tragedy. The disciples of the sect believed in the way of the heavens, and they killed demons. It was the heavens that had done the Dragon Lady wrong, but in the end, it was the disciples of the sect who took the blame. The heavens eliminated the dragon tribe, not the sect. However, I only saw that she was against the heavens, and she eradicated the sect to avoid being killed, but I neglected the fact that the innocent people killed by the Dragon Lady were just blades that the heavens used to kill demons. Daisy lowered her head. She finally knew why she lost during the audition. Maybe it was because I shared her opinion about the Dragon Lady on the day of the audition. I didn't regard myself as the Dragon Lady, but portrayed her using the perspective of a bystander. That's a common mistake that all actors will make once in a while. Charlie handed the script to her. Take this with you, then go back and think about the new role. Perhaps the threshold of Benny's project was too high for you. It's not a bad thing that you lost that role. Daisy took the script from him and lifted her head. Does this mean you'll continue managing my career for me? Nonsense, I only wanted to see just how good you are. Judging from how hard you worked during that time, I'll take you in reluctantly. As soon as he said that, Charlie waved his hand. Now go. Thank you. Daisy thanked Charlie with a smile and left the office with the script in her hands. On the other side of the company, in the lounge, Amy was sitting in the dressing room reading the script. Several other artists envied her for securing herself a role in Benny's project. A female artist walked in at this moment. Ames. She came to Amy and whispered, I heard something. Amy stopped applying her lipstick and looked in the mirror. What's the matter? Didn't Mr. Johnson say that he won't be taking Miss Vanderbilt in as long as she doesn't get the role? The female artist continued with a look of incomprehension. But I just came over from the management department and asked my friends who work there. They claim that Mr. Johnson will not only take her in but has even chosen a new script for her. Amy was not surprised as she screwed her lipstick back into the tube. Isn't this normal? She's actually pretty good at what she does, and Charlie treats all qualified newcomers kindly. The female artist whispered, even if she didn't get a supporting role in Benny's play, now she's gotten a leading role. When you first joined the company under Charlie, all you had done back then was acting in dramas and films, but all you had were supporting roles. Did that mean that Daisy had secured herself a script in which she would act as the main lead because she had lost the supporting role in Benny's project? Amy fell silent for a moment. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Daisy had dinner with her godfather. Helios knew that she had lost the role of the Dragon Lady in a project directed by Benny and said with a smile, Charlie still has high hopes for you. She bit her fork and replied, I thought he wouldn't take me in if I didn't get that role. I really didn't expect him to help me secure another project. Helios looked at her. Although Charlie's temper is a little weird from time to time, he's truly a great manager. Just look at how he was able to make someone like James Tell into a top-tier artist. If you follow him around and manage to learn everything you can from him, you'll definitely improve. Chapter 1864. After saying that, he added, besides, it's a good thing that you've lost the role in Benny's movie. She wondered, why are you saying that as well? Helios smiled. All the actors that were chosen to participate in Benny's project are veteran actors with very strong acting skills. Hence, working with them doesn't only demand a great attitude but a lot of skills too. That's quite a challenging spot to be in for someone as new as you. The journey of any actor that starts at the peak but develops very slowly will attract the most public opinion, and let's not forget that you're the daughter of the Goldmans. This will attract even more unnecessary attention to Benny's project. Once you start this high but are found to be a little lacking in the future, you'll have to take on a lot of criticism, which will create huge pressure. That's why Charlie says that losing out on that role is a good thing for you. It really isn't a bad thing. Daisy had an epiphany. It turns out that Mr. Johnson and Godfather share the same idea. She sighed. In other words, it's my fault to expect too much of myself and make such a mistake. Helios smiled. Successes will only taste better when they're set off by failures. There are still many things that you need to learn. After dinner, Helios sent her back to the Goldman mansion. As soon as she walked into the courtyard, she received consecutive text messages from Freya. I seem to have done something wrong. I really didn't mean to do that. Daisy stopped and replied to the text message. What happened? After a while, she received another message from Freya. Your brother was injured, that's because. In the hospital. Freya sat on a bench in the corridor. After sending the message, she clenched her phone tightly. When the doctor came out of the ward, she got up. Immediately. Is he okay? The doctor replied, he's fine. It's just a slight concussion. He'll recover after a day or two worth of rest. She breathed a sigh of relief, then pushed open the door of the ward. Colton was sitting on the bed with his arms crossed, layers and layers of gauze were wrapped around his head, and he glared calmly at Freya, who walked into the room. Freya stopped by the bed. She was the one who caused Colton's injury, so she suppressed her tone. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. He snorted. You didn't mean to hurt me, but you did it deliberately, didn't you? That's because you pissed me off in the first place. After finding an excuse for herself, she turned her face away. I'll pay for your medical expenses. Colton snorted softly. If I were to be lying here, dead, you going bankrupt wouldn't even be enough to compensate for that. Freya took a deep breath. Then what do you want from me? He ordered her instantly, pour me a glass of water. Freya did not hesitate this time around. She turned around, poured him some water, brought the glass to the bed, and handed it to him. He did not take it from her. My hand hurts. Feed me. She was startled. But your hands aren't injured. Colton refuted, then why not try rolling down the stairs yourself? We'll see if your hands hurt. Freya was at a loss for words. She gnashed her teeth secretly but managed to hold back her temper in the end. She delivered the glass to his mouth, and when it came to feeding someone water, she was quite competent when she was feeding Didi. However, all she did was tilt the glass slightly, and the water in the glass almost got into his nose. Colton pushed the glass away instantly, but the splashed water still drenched his clothes. Freya Pruitt, are you doing this on purpose? Freya took out a tissue and wiped it for him. It's my fault. I'm too clumsy to be serving you water. Her hand traveled down his waistline, and Colton grabbed her arm by the wrist abruptly. She looked up bewilderedly. What's wrong? Colton took a deep breath. Where do you think you're wiping? Freya lowered her head, took a glance at the part that she was about to move to, immediately shifted her gaze away, pulled her hand back, and turned around. The calmer she looked on the surface, the more turbulent it was deep down. She threw the ball of tissue in her hand to him. Then you should wipe it yourself. Colton lifted his gaze, took in the embarrassment she was experiencing, and laughed out loud all of a sudden. What's wrong? Are you shy? She said bluntly, what's there to be shy about? Chapter 1865. Colton leaned against the head of the bed and said nonchalantly, that's true. After all, when we were on the island, you didn't feel ashamed when you were making that sound. Freya turned around, glared at him, and laughed out of anger. Colton Goldman, how are you so impressed by what happened that night? Have you been thinking about it every night when you can't sleep in the middle of the night? He frowned. What horse crap do you think you're blabbering about? Then why would you bring that night up? Freya leaned over and glanced at him with an indifferent smirk on her face. If it's to humiliate me for having no sense of shame, then I'll admit to that. Believe it or not, I'll even pull your pants off if I have to. Doesn't he think I am shameless? Then I'll show him just how shameless I can be. It'll be best if he drives me away and never wants to see me again in his life. In short, I've had enough. Colton grasped her hand abruptly, and she was startled. He then placed her hand on the upper hem of his trousers and stared at her with an unchanged expression. Then why not give it a try? The expression on Freya's face gradually froze. You. He scoffed. Didn't you say you're going to pull my pants off? I'll allow you to do it, but do you have the guts to do so? She tried to break her hand free, but failed. Colton Goldman, I'll scream if you don't let me go. I dare you to do so. Nurse. Before she could finish the sentence, Freya had already lost her balance due to a sudden jerk and threw herself onto his chest. And Colton's back hit the headboard, creating a huge commotion from inside the ward. The nurse heard the noise and pushed the door in. What happened? Seeing the scene in front of her, the nurse was stunned. At that moment, Freya was lying on top of Colton, with her hands propped against his chest, while Colton had his arms raised and resting beside the pillow, and his clothes were disheveled, looking extremely passive. Freya quickly got up from his body and explained, Miss, it's not what you think, Colton interrupted her calmly. Miss, you should have seen that she's molesting me, a patient. Freya inhaled sharply, turned around, and glared at Colton. You. Colton buttoned his clothes casually and let out a sigh. You were about to take my pants off. I'm a patient. I'm not in the condition to fight back. Freya was exasperated. Colton Goldman, how dare you twist the right with the wrong? You're clearly... Mississippi, the nurse interrupted her with a smile. Your boyfriend is still hospitalized. If there's any issue, you should solve it when your boyfriend recovers. He is not. Before Freya could finish explaining herself, the nurse had already left. Colton gave off a hint of pride through his expression. Gotcha. Freya immediately slammed the door and left. Waylon ran into Freya in the corridor, and when he saw that she did not even see him because of how infuriated she was, he shook his head. He pushed open the door of the ward. You're already lying on a hospital bed, and you still can't stop annoying someone. Waylon, why are you here? Daisy told me about this. Colton clicked his tongue and pointed out that Freya was the one who sold him out. She's the one who did this to me, and she has the nerve to tell Daisy about it. Waylon pulled out the chair and sat down. With that level of vigilance of yours, how can others hurt you? If you wanted to avoid all this, the person who rolled down the stairs wouldn't have been you. He knew his younger brother too well. Colton had never been a careless person unless it was to protect someone. That was why he could not avoid hurting himself. Colton did not say anything. It was not his first time provoking Freya. It was just that he did not expect her to react in such a way. At the head of the stairs, she had not even thought about whether she would fall and insisted on breaking free from him. If he had let go of her at that time, she would have surely been the one who rolled down the stairs. Waylon's smirk intensified. Aren't you going to ask her to pay for your medical expenses? Chapter 1866. It's not like I need the money. She's the reason that you were in pain. You would usually make her pay. Waylon's eyes were filled with purpose. Colton turned away. There's no need for me to be petty. Waylon chuckled and said, it's not like you're not usually petty. Colton was rendered speechless. Freya is a good person. Colton suddenly looked at him. That's your opinion about her? Waylon smiled but didn't answer. After being quiet for a moment, Colton looked away and said, what do you think about her? Waylon squinted and asked back, what do you think? Colton said in a low voice, I won't agree if you want to make her my sister-in-law. Waylon's eyes darted before he suddenly laughed. I'm not going to steal my brother's girl. Colton was startled and explained, I didn't say that she was mine. I just think that she's not good enough for you. She doesn't have the potential to become my sister-in-law. Waylon's smile grew wider. He could see what was going on, but he didn't want to say it out loud. If I meet someone I adore, I will lower my standards. There's no such thing as being good enough or not. I don't care about the rules. Colton choked. But she's off limits. Waylon smiled. How will I know if I don't try? Colton took a deep breath and asked, what you said just now was all bullshit. Waylon nodded and said in a serious tone, I won't steal my brother's girl, but is she your girl? Colton didn't know what to say to that. The next day, Colton was discharged from the hospital. Spencer, the spiky-haired friend, went to pick him up. Once Colton got into the car, Spencer clicked his tongue. I heard that woman pushed you down the stairs. That was too much. How could she injure you like that? Colton hated the smell in his car, so he lowered the window. Who said she pushed me? That's what everyone in the college is saying. Freya pushed you down the stairs and intentionally hurt you. Colton frowned. Who spreads that rumor? The girls next door. They said that Freya confessed her feelings to you, but you rejected her. Thus, she pushed you down the stairs. Spencer looked at him and smiled. You know, some of the girls have a crush on you. Freya kept coming over to see you previously and even brought food and drinks. When you fell, Freya was there, so people speculated. Colton rubbed his temples while his breathing became heavy. Get them to shut up. Spencer shrugged. So what if they shut up? You're a notable person, so the professors must be aware of your injury. They probably are speaking to Freya right now. Meanwhile, at the college administrative office, Freya stood in front of the table where the professors and vice principal were. The vice principal knocked on the table with a stoic expression. Miss Pruitt, there's a rumor going around that you've intentionally injured a student. Coleman Goldman from the business school is hurt and in the hospital now. What do you have to say about this? Freya looked down. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Seeing that she had admitted and looked sincere, he didn't make it difficult for her. You're temporarily suspended because your actions caused harm to another student. Usually, this would warrant an expulsion, but since you've admitted to your mistake, we won't make it hard for you. Unfortunately, we still need to punish you. You may return when we inform you about it. Freya nodded. She left the office while Colton walked toward her. Chapter 1867. Freya paused, then continued walking without speaking or greeting him. She pretended she hadn't seen him. Colton suddenly grabbed her. What did the vice principal say to you? Freya pulled her hand back and turned to face him. Isn't this what you want? He frowned. What do you mean? Colton, it was my mistake for causing your injury, and I apologize. I've done enough to repay you for saving my life, so I hope that you stop bothering me. Freya backed away, turned around, and left without looking back. Colton stood on the spot. His heart felt a sharp pain for a moment, and he couldn't breathe. At Bassburg, Daisy got a lot of attention 2 days after joining the team. Even the director and the crew were friendly to her, but she felt awkward about that. Once the filming ended, Daisy sat on her chair and went through the script. Even though it was autumn, it was still hot. Naturally, the layers of costume didn't feel very comfortable. Miss Vanderbilt, would you prefer to rest in the room with air conditioning? Miss Vanderbilt, would you like a drink? Daisy smiled helplessly upon seeing how friendly the crew was. No, but thank you. It'll be my part soon, so I don't want to take up your time. After working with her for 2 days, the crew knew she was nice and had a mild temper. It was hard not to like her. However, all that was photographed by some people and uploaded on Twitter with the caption, #Daisy enjoys special treatment from the crew and is being served by them as if they are her servants. The 3 pictures, combined with the caption, quickly started a discussion. #braindead fans will do anything to defend their rich girl idol when people say she's kind. They're all just trying to get into her good books. The online discussion finally turned into a heated argument between fans and netizens, and it was brutal. The netizens even questioned Daisy on Twitter, but neither she nor Tenet answered. Meanwhile, at Tenet, Charlie was trying to find out who was behind this with the crew. After he found out what had happened, he frowned. Daisy is a celebrity, and cooperating with you is part of her responsibility. You know she's special, but what you did was pretty much creating chances for people to criticize her. They apologized and promised they would get to the bottom of this and make a public apology. Charlie hung up, took out a cigarette, and lit it up. There was a knock on the door, so he said without looking up, "Come in." Amy walked in. "Chuck, do you want me to help Daisy clear the air on the rumors online?" Charlie flicked the ash off the cigarette. "No, I trust her." Amy looked down. "You made her audition for Mr. Crawford's movie because you wanted to test her skills, right?" Charlie looked up and raised his brows, then looked into her eyes. "Are you worried about something?" She paused before saying, "I'm not. You're an A-lister and an actress that I value highly. I admit that she has the skills, but she doesn't have as much experience as you do. Instead of worrying about her, why don't you train yourself and perform well in your own movies?" Amy understood what he meant. He didn't want her to compare herself to Daisy. She would admit that after finding out that Charlie found new resources for Daisy, a script for the lead at that, she was disappointed. Before Daisy showed up, she was the most valued actress by Charlie and Tenet's top performer. She wasn't worried that James would outdo her because he was a useless actor, but Daisy was different. Chapter 1868. Daisy had zest and determination and was quite good at acting. Even her family background couldn't compare. Amy had gotten to where she was because of her willingness to get down and dirty, but Daisy didn't have to go through all that and still could get what she wanted. However, Daisy was hardworking, so it was impossible for Amy not to worry. Amy left the office and returned to her room when another actress barged in with a smile. "Ames?" Amy turned to see her. "Yes?" "Don't worry about Daisy. Even if she got the lead character, she's being brutally attacked. I'm very sure that she's probably hiding somewhere, crying her eyes out." Amy froze, then said, "She's not as weak as you think." "So what?" "The crew did treat her nicer, she doesn't even want to clarify things now. I'm sure it's because she's guilty." Amy looked at her and asked, "How do you know so much about the crew?" The actress walked to her and said, "Because I can't stand her, so I asked someone in the crew for help." "You did this?" Amy was choked. "Are you crazy? You're not afraid that Charlie might find out?" She scoffed. "There's nothing to be afraid of." She wanted to act like she was special, so Charlie definitely wouldn't want to work with her. He hates it when his artists do that. Amy took a deep breath. "Hannah Salvatore, you better get those tweets removed immediately." Hannah didn't look happy. "Why?" "It's just the truth. Listen to me. Charlie says he believes her. You should know his temper. If he finds out, nobody will be able to protect you, a B-lister." Hannah gnashed her teeth. "So what? It's a fact that Daisy is getting special treatment. She's using her influence as a Goldman. Don't worry. I won't drag you into this. I just don't like her. I'll settle this myself." Hannah, Amy wanted to stop her, but she didn't come back. At noon, the crew finally replied and clarified that Daisy had a bad attitude. They said that Daisy had a good relationship with the crew and that they willingly treated her nicely. Daisy had also rejected special treatment. However, soon after that clarification, a user named Gossipy started attacking them and said that the crew said all that because they didn't want to offend the Goldmans and insisted that Daisy had a bad attitude. That went on for 2 days, yet the arguments online didn't slow down. Daisy had yet to say anything. That evening, at the Goldman mansion, Maisie handed some food to Daisy and seemed to be worried about the attacks online, so she asked, "Daisy, do you want your father to help?" No, she looked up and smiled. "Mom, I don't read the news, so it doesn't affect me. The more they criticize me, the more motivated I get." Maisie chuckled. "I'm glad it doesn't affect you, but no matter what happens, remember that your father and I will always stand behind you." Daisy nodded. When she got back to the room, Daisy got a call from Freya. Daisy, are you alright? I saw that you're trending. Daisy was stunned. Even you saw that? Chapter 1869. Did Nole see it too? Noilus had always been busy, so Daisy would feel guilty if he was worried about her. Freya knew what she was worried about, so she chuckled. Don't worry. It's not in the news. I saw it on Twitter. That workaholic probably doesn't spend a lot of time there. Daisy let out a sigh of relief. I hope he doesn't see it because I don't want it to affect him. Daisy, Freya wanted to speak but stopped. Daisy could tell that she had more to say and asked, what's wrong? You said you wanted me to become your assistant, doesn't that still stand? Daisy continued after a long pause. Are you sure? She smiled. If you invite me, I will consider it. If I join the entertainment industry, I won't have time to write, so it's better for me to be an assistant. You might become the lead in my work. Sure, it's decided then. I'll reserve the position of my personal assistant for you. After they ended the call, Freya sent her college withdrawal letter. The next day, at the college, Spencer found Colton on the basketball court. Cole. Colton was playing when he heard his voice. He passed the ball to his teammate and walked toward him. What's up? Spencer put his hand on his shoulder, out of breath, because he had been running. Freya has applied to drop out. Colton squinted and left before Spencer could continue. Hey, where are you going? He didn't have the energy to follow after him until a teammate walked over. What's wrong with him? Who knows? Spencer was clueless. I just told him that Freya has applied to drop out, and he immediately left. The friend immediately understood and smiled. So, Colton has a thing for her. Spencer was shocked. What? Cole bought that necklace, but kept bringing it around instead of giving it away. He even asked me how to give a present to a girl one has feelings for. So, it must be for his groupie. Spencer was stunned. Wasn't that for his sister? The friend tapped his shoulder. Why would he be sneaky if it were for his sister? Freya packed up her bags in her dorm and left her room. She stood at the gates waiting for a taxi. Someone suddenly approached, took her phone away, and canceled the call. Are you crazy? Freya was shocked. Colton hadn't changed out of his jersey and was sweating so much it was soaked. He seemed to have run over, so he was slightly out of breath. She snapped back. You're the crazy one. Give me back my phone. She put out her arm to grab it, but Colton dropped it into his pocket. She was shocked. You. Why are you dropping out? It has nothing to do with you. It does. He stopped, then continued. If it is because of my injury, I've already spoken to the administration. Freya cut him off. It has nothing to do with that. Colton, this is my own choice. I don't want to continue studying in college. I have my own path to take. It's as simple as that. What path could you take by dropping out? Colton walked closer to her with fire in his eyes. Are you going to another college? Would they accept you dropping out without a solid reason? Chapter 1870. Freya grabbed Colton's collar. This is none of your business. Now give me back my phone. No. Colton, have some decency. He stared at her. Get it yourself. Freya took a deep breath and nodded. I will. She boldly put her hand into his pocket, but Colton suddenly grabbed her by her wrist and tugged. Freya lost her balance and fell into his arms. She was stunned and froze in his arms. Colton raised his hand and fastened the necklace around her neck. When Freya realized what had happened, she pushed him away and felt around her neck. She looked down at the compass necklace. It was the one she had seen on CD. Colton looked away as he said, "It kind of looks good on you." Freya looked at him and froze for a moment. Why are you giving this to me? Colton looked uneasy. I've given you the necklace. Can't you see what it means? Freya pursed her lips and didn't speak. A necklace would mean that he had feelings for her. Was that possible? Colton leaned closer and cupped her cheeks. Before she could react, her lips felt warm and moist. Freya closed her eyes and placed her hand on his chest. She wanted to push him away, but Colton had already retreated. Come see me if you want your phone back. He then turned and left. Freya froze on the spot as if time had stopped. After 2 days, Charlie arranged for Daisy to go for an interview with some reporters. She was able to remain calm while facing all the difficult questions. I can answer your questions, but can you ensure that you won't edit it maliciously? The reporter was stunned but continued asking, do you mean the slander on Twitter? Daisy asked, yes, it was a made-up situation. The reporter said, but some insider leaked that you did receive special treatment, and you brought investment to the project. Daisy smiled. The crew members were just being nice to me. It's not special treatment. I'm curious which part was considered special treatment. Me staying in an air-conditioned room? That I didn't need to act, and all my scenes were edited? Or was I not cooperating with the director and crew? Why aren't people saying that the crew is friendly? Shouldn't we all help each other? I don't wish for my background to turn into fuel for speculation and slander. My dad never invested in the project, so how did I bring in investment? I'm waiting to get paid. The reporter continued. Miss Vanderbilt, why didn't you clear the air on those allegations? Daisy smiled. The truth will be out. I hope that people will focus on my acting instead of my background. I joined the industry because I love to act. If people want to condemn me, they should focus more on my acting and work. I will accept the criticism and do better if I'm not doing well. Daisy wasn't arrogant throughout the interview, so the reporter had no chance to make it hard on her. The interview was broadcast live and was supported by many fans. After an hour, Black Gold made a statement saying that Mr. Goldman had not invested in them, nor did he try to get involved with his daughter's career. The fans all went to gossipy Twitter account and asked the user not to spread rumors without solid evidence and cause trouble to others.